Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And a warm and splendid evening to you. This is Newsline Live. And it's all about the budget, actually, and the impact on the corporate world, the employers of hundreds of thousands of people in this country. To analyze what's going on from the corporate perspective, we've got here a tax specialist who's no newcomer to this program. He's actually quite a mature guest here, Mr. N.R. Gajendran, who's joining us this evening. Very good evening to you, Mr. Gajendran.
Good evening, good to be here.
Thank you very much. Now then,
Pleasure.
This budget has proposed a super gains tax or surcharge on corporates. And the Minister of Finance declared that there was 62 companies that would fall into this net, who have profits of over 2,000 billion rupees profit, and which is about $10 million. My question to you, Mr. Gajendran, is this. After 73 years of independence, where we've been the masters of our destiny, only 62 companies making $10 million a year in profit?
For us, the Minister of Finance made a startling revelation when he compared Sri Lanka to Singapore, what we were in 1960 and what Singapore was in 1960 and what we are now.
Yeah.
In 1961, the budget stated that Sri Lanka's GDP was $1.4 billion, whereas Singapore's was $0.7 billion. That is, we were twice as much in the GDP's term. Now, in 2020, Singapore is $320 billion, and we are just $80 billion. And don't forget, Singapore's population is about 1/5 of Sri Lanka. Their per capita is about $65,000. We are about $3,800.
Yes, I had it as their per capita income is $59,000.
Yeah, $59,000. Yes,
and here it's about 3,600.
600 because of it's dropping.
It's dropping.
It's dropping because of the rupee.
It's a good thing that Mr. Lee Kuan Yew didn't actually do what he wanted to, which was to emulate Sri Lanka.
No, that's what he did. In 60, he said 25 years from now, he said, I want to be Sri Lanka. But if he lived now, he might say, Sri Lanka is not the best example for him.
No, it can't be.
It cannot be. And also don't forget that it's also mentioned in the budget, about 23% of the population, that's about 5 million people, are living on Samurdhi money. That's about 500, 600 billion rupees. So successively for 60 years, it looks like certainly we are not done well. And what has happened is you can see the rich has got richer and the poor has got poorer.
So the wealth divide has got bigger.
Yeah, certainly it's bigger and it's getting bigger and bigger. Your question on the surcharge, the 25%, it's over 2 billion. The question and the debate is whether this was a felicitous move by the government to impose taxes over 2 billion at 25%, which is a sizable amount. But if you see from Adam Smith in 18th century pronounced that there are 4 canons or 4 principles, underlying principles when you want to impose a charge tax. One was equity, other one is convenience, third one was certainty, and fourth one was efficiency.
So equity, convenience,
certainty, and efficiency. So equity is the point here I'm trying to expand. It should be just, fair, and reasonable. So on that principle, ability to pay. Equity is, you should have the capacity, because any of imposition of tax is if you don't, it's not, if it is legislation, it's, I say it's highway robbery. So you legislate to impose tax to take away the hard-earned earnings of the corporates and the individual. So here you have gone, their government has gone to tax the people who had made profits, bottom line, taxable income over 2 billion.
You mentioned the ability to pay.
Yeah.
If we remember that great leader of Britain, Margaret Thatcher,
Yeah.
with her, with her tax, she didn't link it. Unfortunately for her, she didn't link it with the ability to pay, and it cost her dearly.
Yes, here at least this tax and most of the taxes, other than the 2.5% on the social security levy.
Yeah.
Most of the other taxes are on. They are raising about 300. We are going to raise about have targeted to raise about 335 billion. Most of them are on. One is on this super profits. Other one is on. You are going to tax on. Liquor, there is GST, consolidated tax, which was pronounced last year, which is going to be implemented this year, and they say the legislation is ready, that is for vehicles, cigarettes, casinos, and things like that.
My question is this, they tax these the excise duties and so on, alcohol and whatever, but on the other side, I read an article in one of the weekend newspapers several months ago. One particular company involved in the production of alcohol had been lent a total of over 10 billion rupees. They owed the banks, they owed the state banks money, they owed taxes, and they also owed the excise department themselves. And if there was proper implementation, if there was less of this political impunity and patronage, then that particular company and their associated companies wouldn't have been able to get away with it. It's a criminal amount of money.
To be fair by the finance minister, he has acknowledged this. He has mentioned.
Acknowledging itself, Mr. Gajendran, surely isn't enough. You need action, don't you?
You have to walk the talk.
Yeah.
So the implementation, at least for the first time, it has been mentioned that the Department of Inland Revenue is not up to the task, even with RAMIS, customs and also excise. So they have a single window system for custom, and the RAMIS, hopefully they are going to implement it in the fullest perspective. And also it has been mentioned the excise will be the excise department will be digitized. So in many instances we never walk the talk in the budget, and that's the reason why we have gone into the current state of crisis. So it has to be implemented.
Yeah.
If it is not implemented, we will move from bad to worse.
If we had got our planning right, right from the beginning, this is going back all those years ago, 73 years we've been, masters of our own destiny. Had we got it all right and encouraged our private sector and so on, instead of these 62 companies, we may even have had 600. Don't you think that we should have about 600 now?
No, but if you see the status we were in 1961,
yeah.
Arguably we would have been the the richest country, not just in South Asia, but even Southeast Asia. The numbers have been given. Our GDP, the GDP and our state of affairs far superior to Thailand, Indonesia, and countries like that. So we have got it maybe not all right, and its successive governments have done this. And it's a tragedy that we are in this state, and we are in the worst financial crisis in our history now, they say.
If we had about, instead of this, I have to call it measly, 62 companies, right, that is less than one a year, 73 years. We don't even have 73. All right, so 62 companies. If we had 600 of these, for example, don't you think that we would have been far more, the country would have been far more attractive to the foreign direct investment bearing person?
Certainly, that's the reason. If you see our tax, the proportionate numbers of tax for direct and indirect tax, it is indirect tax is almost 80%, and direct tax, what you're talking of, corporate bottom line tax, is about 20%. If we had more wealth created, and if the systems were efficient in capturing this revenue, then definitely the ideal number is the other way around. We should be at least 40% income tax or 60% income tax. Countries which have macroeconomic stability will get their revenue in greater proportion from bottom line taxes, that is on taxable income and profits. That is, you have your revenue and after you're meeting your expenses. But Sri Lanka, we always end up taxing at the top line, and that has negative consequences and affects the magnitude, because it impedes the capacity to buy and the capacity to consume, because the money left with you after paying the taxes, the marginal propensity to consume is severely affected because of indirect taxes. So that's the answer we are having. I mean, because what you are saying is absolutely correct. We are in the situation, even our tax mix is not exemplary.
There's another point to this. There are foreign banks in this country who will obviously come under this net of for the super gain, the surcharge, the 25% surcharge. Now, what do you think their head offices are going to react with when these here say to them, look, boys, we need to pay a bit more tax because that's the new rule here? You see, they'll obviously pay because they're trading here, but when it's the turn of our government to go and try and negotiate loans with these banks, will be very much part of the whole consortium to try and to lend us more money. What do you think they're going to say? Do you think they're going to welcome us with open arms, are they?
Well, it is supposed to be one-off tax.
5 years ago it was one-off as well.
Yeah.
So it's a irregular, regular one-off tax.
But if you have to tax something or someone, any country will have to tax the bottom line, and that also where the ability to pay is will not be questioned. So I mean, Sri Lanka, we have relied heavily on bottom line taxes, and our tax rates have been lowest for past so many years. Even corporate tax is 24%. With the world average is about 24%, and some of the countries are even more. But don't forget United Arab Emirates, UAE, their tax is about 54% bottom line. So there are countries impose high levels of taxation. Of course, they may be oil companies, because they make humongous profits. So if you have to tax something, because we can't rely on debt, and when we rely on debt, and if we can't get debt, we start printing money, and that is also criticized.
But the last government, the Arpalanista government, they tried this stunt with super gains tax, and they remember the then Prime Minister said that they were going to create 1 million new jobs. Well, if you refer to the documentation, the data that's available from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, we actually lost 400,000 jobs. And they couldn't implement that super gains tax.
Super gain tax was implemented, and they raised the revenue what they expected.
Yes.
50 billion or 60 billion. They raised that revenue, and with that only they paid that salary.
Didn't a couple of corporates go to court and go to court on the basis that they didn't want it backdated?
No, I don't think they went on corporate. But they went to courts were one or two politicians went on value-added tax.
Right.
When the finance minister raised the rates without trying to go backwards, They said, no, you cannot impose tax without legislation. There is no taxation without legislation. That principle was
from a tax point of view, after all, and you know, this tax applied retrospectively. From you're a tax specialist. What do these companies say to you and say, look, we've already distributed our profits, we've made our investments, we've made our plans.
That's a valid point, because ideally there should be no retroactive or retrospective tax. There are slight difference. There shouldn't be the case. But Sri Lanka repeatedly has been doing this over and over again, which should not be the case. But in this particular case, it is not viewed as a retroactive, but it a retroactive tax, because the tax base is 31st March 21. But you are going to pay now. But there is a point where people may have distributed money, but unless otherwise the companies are having a slum in 21-22, they could budget for this tax now in the current year's one. So it's a chicken and egg situation. Which one are you going to tax? So you can tax it future, but I think why they have done it, again from the past experience, because window dressing or manipulation of the profits may not be possible, because accounts are all finalized and taxable income established for 2021.
On that note, let's go for a quick break and take a peek at this evening's headlines from the Newsfirst team. We'll see you on the other side.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. We are in conversation with Mr. N.R. Gajendran, who is, of course, a rather well-known tax specialist. Now then, I'm going to read out a message. Thank you for your messages, by the way. 0772 300 305. Harshna will put it on the screen, I'm sure, at any time. Now, can Mr. Gajendran identify the officials running the economy by name? That was one. But the one that I really wanted is slightly different. Here we go. It's disappeared. Oh, my goodness. So it's gone. It's gone. Right. Anyway, can you identify the officials running this economy?
Well,
who is it? Is it?
You know the finance minister is there.
Right, okay.
You have the secretary to the treasury is there.
Right.
And of course, on the monetary side, the central bank is there.
What about the secretary of treasury, who's not the secretary of treasury, who's now somewhere else, but who's remarkably conversant with everything that's going on in the treasury?
Certainly, he is a learned man, whom you are referring to.
Yeah.
But
and why isn't he the secretary of treasury?
No, he has had a term for a long time, and he's at a higher post, I suppose, now secretary to the president. And
18 years.
I don't know how many years he was there. Yeah. Of course, he knows.
Well, he was with Mahinda, and he was with.
No, he was with Chandrika.
That's right.
Was with Mahinda, and now he's with this president also.
But not as treasury secretary.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so maybe that's what it is. However, why can't we have a system like in Singapore? They have a flat 17%, apart from the sales tax.
You know, there was a Buddhist priest, a learned man. He had read something on the back of a three-wheeler. And it's in Sinhala version.
Yeah.
You know, I can put that. But what he was trying to say is that you have to be your own self. You know, Mama Venda, you know, for me to be what I am.
You must be yourself.
Yes, there is enough time. But if I want to be someone else, the time is wee bit short. But that little time is not enough in my lifetime, so I have to be myself. We can learn from other countries, but we can't be that country. So Singapore is a developed country at this stage. They don't run huge budget deficits. In fact, when they have surplus in their they give dividends sort of to the people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they pay back, especially
Bonus time.
Yeah, bonus. Very generally it happens with the election time, but once in 3-4 years.
Oh, so that's the same about here.
But we don't get like that. We don't get
but you
anything.
get it in other ways.
No, but here they pay. Every citizen is paid certain amount. So that is because they have run surpluses and they don't have deficits.
Mr. Gajendran, why did the present government change the tax system? By that, didn't the government lose? And for whose benefit was this done?
Well, it was, I wouldn't know whether it was a well-researched decision, but even in the manifesto of His Excellency the President, it said we are going to introduce simple taxes, and also they want to spur the economic activity. But in retrospect, we have lost about 500-600 billion rupees of tax, and that was one of the primary reasons we ended up printing money. Particularly, we couldn't get borrowings. The idea of spurring the economy also, it didn't work. It was a non sequitur. It was thought that by reducing the taxes, people have more disposable income to spend, and also the businesses will reduce prices. It didn't happen. It didn't happen.
Mr. Gajendran, can you give us 3 direct sources of tax that the government can impose and collect on it?
What do you mean 3 sources of tax?
This is a message that I'm reading out.
Yeah.
Give us 3 direct sources of tax that the government can impose and collect.
There are taxes could be 2 forms.
Okay.
Direct taxes and indirect taxes.
Okay.
So direct taxes is income tax, the bottom line. The emphasis should be on direct taxes. Indirect taxes is we have VAT, transaction taxes, import taxes, excise, customs, and now you have the security levy 2.5%.
Yes, but that's 2.5% on revenue.
Yes. It is, of course, now it's over 120 million.
Yeah.
Don't forget, till 2019, we had the NBT also, which was 2%. We have had different form of taxes of Save the Nation tax, national security, nation building tax and things, and sometimes it was 4%, 3%, 2%.
So that's like sort of normal for our country.
You have to raise revenue. Still, we are short of revenue. We are still relying on debt. We can't go on relying on debt.
So what do you do? How do we up the revenue?
You have to up the revenue. You have to. One thing is the revenue collecting system has to become efficient. The RAMIS system, and the single window system.
Is that working?
No, it is not working. It is not working.
But they spent lots of money on it.
Yeah, it's not working. So that is the challenge. You have to rope in the revenue that has to be collected even under the current system. Of course, this is mentioned in the budget. The 3 revenue administrators, single window system focusing, RAMIS, and digitization of excise. So there are 22 institutions to be connected, where they could get information. Of course, secrecy is another issue. So if it is not implemented, this is what we will get.
But, if we don't implement these things, or put it another way, is this all just announcements, and is it really no action, talk only, NATO?
No, we have come to a point we can't just go without implementing. Then we can have catastrophe one after the other. We are on the verge of it now. If you see our net foreign reserves, I think after 1990, it has hit the deficit. It was 400 million in August, and now it must be 1.6 or 2 billion. Never before.
A member of the opposition said that this is an economic Armageddon, and he also said that this is a catastrophe, economically speaking. Would you agree?
I think we are nearing a chaos.
Nearing a chaos.
Yeah, multiple chaos, because of, I think there has to be some hard decisions and refocus has to be done. The main reason our foreign reserves have dropped to abysmal low, and unless we have to get some non-debt receipts in the next few months, next few weeks, at least $1 to $2 billion, $3 billion, we can have major issues facing us.
Weeks, this is getting critical.
Yeah, for certainly, because our net foreign reserves is almost 1.6 billion in the negative. The foreign reserves is about 2 billion to 1.6 billion. That's what we see even in the newspaper.
You know, the government is asking us to pay all these additional little taxes here, there, and everywhere. This levy, that levy, as you were saying. How about getting all public servants to pay taxes?
No, public servants are liable to pay tax now.
Are they?
Yeah. Only thing, if everyone who earns more than 3 million a year, that is 250,000 rupees a year,
right,
for a month. I think many of the public servants are because of that out of the net. I don't think even I don't know, I'm sure even the Commissioner General, with all his allowances put together, whether he will get 250,000 rupees a month.
So they're effectively out of the net?
Net, because the tax-free threshold is about 3
million now.
3,250,000 rupees. Yes. That's a conscious decision, I believe, the government.
If you were to have 2 minutes with the Minister of Finance and to give him some very powerful advice, what would you say? What 2 or 3 things would you say to him?
Well, I would say that don't overvalue the rupee. Because when you overvalue the rupee, we live beyond our means. And there are, when you have an overvalued rupee, you are subsidizing really the exporter. You're not helping the people who are buying here. And when you overvalue the rupee, the local production producers become uncompetitive, exports become uncompetitive, and because of overvalued rupee, the interest rates goes up, and again now it's going up. So the production is going to be, cost of production in local, it's anti-Sri Lanka basically. And also another thing I would think is this mandatory conversion.
Yeah.
It's not felicitous for Sri Lanka.
Not felicitous for conversion. I do hope that the dear Governor, Nimad Cabral, is listening to you. And on that note, Mr. N.R. Gajendran, thank you very much for being on the program. And that's the way it was on Newsline Live this evening. Take care, have a great evening, and God bless you.